It's not enough to just hide behind technology. Having real conversations with your clients, engaging them, digging deeper, understanding who they are and what they want, that goes a long way toward keeping top of mind awareness and doing the best job you can for your clients. I wasn't ready for that. Wow. I'm glad we didn't skip the week. That was me.
Actually, just getting started. Like, I've been playing around with this stuff, and you can get pretty awesome on a decent budget.
Yeah.
And have some fun.
Yeah. Well, that was fun to watch. I'll say that, and it makes. I got to tell you, it's. Never mind. But I hope the cameraman is okay. That's all I can.
He's
That's
not.
all I can say. Yeah.
He is not.
Yeah. I get it. I get it. So.
All right. So we are talking about. Let's put up our banner.
How does deposit impact me as a buyer or a seller? All right. Well, we overuse the term down payment around here because there's two down payments that we talk about, and they get convoluted.
Well, I mean both. I
know you do.
I meant both. And
I know you do. All right. So there is what most people around the country call the good faith deposit, which is what you put on deposit initially at the contract, right? Local attorneys call that the down payment. It's a good faith deposit, but it is not always the full down payment. And then there is, in fact, the down payment, which is the money you write the check for that is not being borrowed. So you could put a deposit of, I don't know, $10,000 at contract, but write another check for $100,000 at closing in addition to the money that you borrow. So we're going to look at two things today, right? All right. Attorneys like to hold 10% in escrow at contract, don't they? They like to hold the perception is that a big deposit is something that looks good. All right. Buyer will not walk away from a 10% deposit, right? I got news for you. Buyers won't walk away from a 2% deposit. No one's walking away from a lot of money, in my experience.
And I got news for you. Very few real estate attorneys really want to litigate over deposits.
Yeah.
And in our part of New York State, it's refundable. It is refundable. So until certain, unless it's cash as is, no contingencies. Otherwise, if any of those things go wrong, any of the contingencies, the deposit is refundable.
The deposit goes right back.
So it doesn't matter so much. They don't want to fight over $2,000 deposit, and they don't want to fight over a $200,000 deposit. One thing I learned by marrying an attorney.
Right, right. Well, I'm not going to do that, but yeah. So, but the visual, right? The optic to the seller.
Skin in the game. It's like
skin in the game. Exactly. The skin in the game phrase. Having a lot of skin in the game is something that makes the sellers and their attorneys very comfortable. And we've actually had agents who have won bidding wars by promising to put 20% in escrow. And then, of course, the consumer finds out from, their cousin in Canada that, well, you don't need to put 20% in escrow. Why are they holding all that money? You can just put 10% or 5%. Then they go back to our agents and we have to tell them that, well, we're in a cartoonish anomaly market, and that got you the deal. And, the 11 cents in interest you lost in your savings account is not worth losing the house over.
Well, and when it comes to the 0% down, which the most common used one is the VA loan, we often suggest that they put money down as a deposit and they'll get it back and they could use it towards their closing costs or whatever at the closing, because it does give some skin in the game. I mean, who wants to sign a contract with zero skin in the game?
Well, you need consideration to form a contract anyway. It's not enough to just put ink on a paper. Scribbling your name on a contract does not bind a contract the way consideration does. And consideration is valued, is termed as typically money, right? So with the written agreement, you need money in escrow. And even with a VA buyer, even with a zero down buyer, you're still going to have costs. You're still going to have closing costs. VA loans and zero down payment loans or 100% LTV loans, they're not free. There's still titles. There's still title charges. You're still going to buy title insurance. You still have to pay closing costs, transfer tax.
Shelled out money for an inspection typically, and multiple inspections at that.
Yes. So the zero down term, which we both probably remember from our youth in the 80s, was made popular in current parlance by Carlton Sheets, all right, and Dave Delgado, these guys that did those infomercials, right? At the wee hours of the morning, we would be, a little drunk, eating pizza, watching TV at 3 a.m., and then the infomercial guy would come on and, zero down and buy. And what they were really talking about back then was assumable mortgages, just taking over somebody's payments. And there aren't many assumable mortgages anymore. So 100% LTV, zero down, you're still going to have some money. You still got to pay closing costs. You still got to move. You got to pay the mover. You're still going to have to come up with some money. You got to pay your attorney. Your attorney's not going to be like, that's okay. You don't have to pay me, right? And sometimes in some instances, you might even have to pay your broker, right? So zero down is a little misleading. 100% LTV is a little bit more accurate, but you still have to put money in. And even with a VA or zero down, you're going to have some skin in the game, right? Then there is the LTV thing, which matters more to banks, right? So the thought is, fairly accurate, by the way, that the more money you put down, the easier it'll be to have your loan approved, because if you're borrowing 50% of the value of a property, that makes you a far less of a risk than if you're borrowing 97% of the value of a property. Two reasons. A, skin in the game. You have more skin in the game. But B, you're a stronger borrower. If the bank ever had to foreclose on you, or if you got into if the creek runs high and you had to sell, well, if you only owe 50% of the value, it's really easy to sell. But if you're upside down, if the market hiccups and you borrowed 98% of the value, you don't even have enough to pay your commission. You are upside down. The day you close on a zero down loan, you are upside down. And you're going to be upside down in a typical market trajectory for about 5 years. This is why those zero down programs are only available to owner occupants, because the presumption is that you're actually going to be living there for a while and probably not selling for 7, 10, 15, 20 years. Some people 40 years later still live in the same house that they bought VA, a gajillion years ago, right?
Right.
So an underwriter likes to see a big down payment. And to that end, they have this whole PMI thing. FHA, Federal Housing Administration, calls it MIP, mortgage insurance premium. Other lenders, conventional lenders, will call it PMI, private mortgage insurance. And what it means is if you put less than 20% down, the bank will charge you an insurance premium, commonly called PMI or MIP if it's FHA, that if you go south, that the bank will be insured for your mortgage. And then I don't know how that works with the banks, because they still end up foreclosing and reselling the property and writing it down and everything like that. But the PMI disappears once you put that magic 20% down in equity.
We have a question question here. Do you see it?
I don't.
It's from Paul Donahue, Renee's husband. He's got himself on here now as Don Ho. He says, do they still have front end and back end ratios? Which I don't even know the answer to.
He's right.
So.
They do. They do. Okay. So you're what he's referring to, he could turn to that very beautiful woman that he lives with and ask her, because she knows this. But front end and back end ratios are your debt to income ratios. So if you make $10,000 a month and your mortgage payment is $2,000, then your front end ratio is 20%. But if you add up your car payment, your student loan payment, your credit cards, and blah 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 blah, and that's another $1,000 a month, that's $3,000 a month. That's a 30% back end ratio. So yes, they still do. And
in commercial world, that's your net operating income.
Yes. Yeah. You guys have your own, you guys have your own parlance, but it's all the same thing. You better have some money left over.
You could be getting a 3.5%, or 97.5. That's the rate.
96.5, yeah.
Yeah, 96.5. Thank you. Loan, and you could afford to put 20% down. That happens often, not often, but there are programs out there for people who don't want to use their own cash. Most people with cash don't want to use their own cash.
Yep.
So not always does it make you not as good as the lender. And in those scenarios, if you want to put less cash down, you can do things in the contract to make the seller feel more comfortable. Like if there's appraisal issues or, whatever, that you do have capital to make up the difference and to, so if the bank's comfortable, but the seller isn't, there are things that you can do in that contract to make the seller feel more secure in you putting down less. Many people want to do the old bait and switch. Say you're going to put down 20%, even go to contract saying it, and then when it comes time to funding the mortgage, doing a switcheroo. And that I don't suggest that. Well, that gives the seller an out. The seller could legitimately back out of the deal.
Well, I think if they were to do it, they would be backing out at the closing table. But it's not a very nice thing to do. It's not a very nice thing to do. False pretenses, probably good faith is probably always a good way to operate. But having a contractual down payment agreed upon. And that's why, by the way, that is why it is specifically referred to in the contract that there is that you're putting this much money down. There's a reason that's in the contract. The contract doesn't just say, you show up, you'll close on this date. They have all kinds of things. As a matter of fact, we had a situation where a client was selling in order to buy. She had ample down payment, no worries there, but she needed to sell her home in order to buy. If we put that it was a contingency of selling her property in order to buy, they never would have taken her deal. And this is where you got to listen to your attorney, because we made the offer just with a mortgage contingency, with the thought that, hey, if you don't sell your house, you won't get a mortgage. No harm, no foul. Well, guess what? The seller put in the contract that if they got turned down for a mortgage due to the fact that their house didn't sell, that would still be deemed a satisfied mortgage contingency. We didn't know that. Now, Laura Brown, genius, figured it out, right? Christian Babcock, Laura Brown, and I put our heads together. You can tell who was the mental midget in there. I was like listening to smart people talk, and we figured it out. But you got to be very, very careful about that thing too. We've drifted a little bit afield, but yeah, you've got to make sure the devil in those details is addressed. So yeah, if you say you're going to put 20% down and you end up borrowing 90%. That's bad faith. That's not good.
Yeah. And then on the flip side, sellers and listing agents, make sure you're not making assumptions of why they're doing 3.5% or 5% down. They could be very much the circumstance that they don't want to use their cash. So dig a little deeper. You can ask for other proof of funds and other you don't have to be the bank to ask for some proof of their financial capabilities.
Yeah,
You're well
absolutely.
within your rights to ask those questions. I mean, you have to be sort of across the board. So you should ask everybody who's putting a 5% offer down to provide backup proof of funds. Not hand select who you think you should ask that question of. But you definitely can ask for more verification on their financial power.
Yeah, smart buyer could very well elect to hold back a lot of money in their savings, put a lower down payment down, and I don't want to know what that is. Is it kombucha or is it just coffee?
Carrot celery.
I knew it was. I knew it was not what it looked like.
I'm on the no liquids till noon is my new thing.
Oh, okay.
Liquids till noon.
I knew some guys
I'm
in college that were like that.
Hey Renee, mwah. I'm coming to the lavender farm. You know these guys.
Is this our greyhound raiser over there? This is our friend in where are they now? Are they in like Montana or something?
I want to say Minnesota.
Minnesota could be. It had one of the rectangle states, and they're raising all these little greyhounds. You two are amazing. My beautiful bride says hello. Yeah, I know your bride's beautiful. I know you are. You're a lucky guy, Don Ho.
That was his name in the military.
Is that right?
Yes.
This is true.
So yeah, so no solids till noon because I want to look like Renee.
All right, so okay, have at it. The buyer could put 5% down and be able to pay cash. They may have the resources.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, mortgages are not just for people who don't have money. And like we said, most people with money are constantly leveraging the fact that they do have money to not use their own money.
Well, for example, if you're earning, if the interest rate on your mortgage is 3%, not lately, but if the interest rate on your mortgage is 3% and you have your money in a higher yielding instrument, borrow the money. It's cheaper. You're ahead. Putting it all into real estate, which we don't know where that will go. Although in an economy like this, you should be running to real estate because it is stable.
So we focused a lot on how it impacts the seller, but as a buyer, you have to be aware that when you're putting in offers in a multiple bid situation, we are judging by down payment amounts.
Yeah. The sellers are going to be Judgy McJudge face. Their attorney's going to be Judgy McJudge face. So is their agent. Limit that can be gifted for a down payment depends on the program, but I'll tell you what, most programs that I know of, you can get all of it as a gift, all of it. Most programs that I know
has to be structured properly.
You need a gift letter. The money has to be documented. Can't be mattress money. You need a gift letter, bank statements, 90 days seasoning, probably that sort of thing. But there's really no limit to my knowledge.
It's funny because most of the time when people talk about cash, they're not talking about cash. So one of our new agents, Angelique, the way she asked me a question, I literally thought, and I think she might have thought, right, because she's new, and she hangs out in a very cash world crowd, and I think she actually thought he meant like cash in the shoebox. So I was like, well, you could bring the cash in the shoebox to his attorney, and his attorney can write a letter saying I have this, blah blah blah. Man. And the guy was like, why would I switch my cash over to whatever? So, but most of the time when we talk about cash, we're not talking about cash.
Well, no, we're not talking about in your wallet. We're not talking about a wad of cash.
And cash is the same thing to a seller at the closing. I know everybody thinks cash. I mean, and cash is king. It still is, but it doesn't have quite as much impact as most people think who are putting down their cash offers. Because at the end of the closing, typically a seller walks away with a check, not about. And even if they walk away with a box full of cash, now they got to figure out what to do with it because it's been reported on the HUD.
Yeah, now they got it.
There is there a HUD on a cash closing? There's not a HUD, but there's
there's a closing statement, but there's you still got to get to your car, and there's like 10 people in the room that know you got the money. And things happen to the security cameras.
You don't want me to be one of the people in the room because I'm taking you out.
Yeah.
For that $500K.
Yeah, you could make a ballpoint pen a lethal weapon. I know you.
I don't even need the pen.
So we had 20 minutes, or what are we doing?
Yeah, no, we're good. Yeah.
We're good.
I forgot we're supposed to keep it under.
You are now educated.
But I'm out of Facebook jail. This is like my coming out party.
Are you like Tim Robbins at the end of the Shawshank Redemption? You're like,
I'm
gonna
be like Will Smith and virtually smack you right now. You ready? And you react like Chris Rock. You ready? There you go.
I can't believe that happened.
Thanks. I can. I'm happy to see that, people aren't perfect. Definitely not acceptable behavior, but raise your hand.
He's a comedian.
Raise your hand if you've ever done anything that is not acceptable behavior. So we're going to blow it out of water because he's famous? No. Good for you, Will Smith. You're human. Good for you, Chris Rock, for not blowing it up and making a huge deal out of it. And we have emotions, and sometimes our emotions get the better of us. And I'll tell you what, this world right now, it's easy for that to happen.
Well, if multi-millionaires are on edge, what about a regular guy?
Listen, this was one of the things, and then we'll end. When I spent so much time up at the monastery and did my deep Buddhist studying and practice, and I spent like hundreds of hours with the nuns and the monks. And then I got really involved, and they had so much drama, so much chaos, fighting with each other. And these people meditated for hours a day. Yeah, and then I felt better. Yeah. They call it
relatable.
Suchness.
Suchness?
They're suchness. So human beings, and it's actually nice to see the human side of people, even when it's not beautiful. So that's my take. All right.
Good stuff, Jennifer. Let's get on to the rest of the suchness of the day then.
Okie dokie.
It's not enough to just hide behind technology. Having real conversations with your clients, engaging them, digging deeper, understanding who they are and what they want, that goes a long way toward keeping top of mind awareness and doing the best job you can for your clients.